is organized by Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Madras, and CEPHA network, sponsored by GCRF, UKRE, and AQML, Air Quality Management Association. So basic idea of this lecture series is to have enhance intersectorial engagement, interdisciplinary activities, and to develop lasting partnership between the colleagues working in the area of environmental engineering, and also to develop innovative solutions through lecture series, to bring some new ideas, and focus on knowledge exchange, particularly in the South Asian countries, and also empower underrepresented groups, and co-create lasting partnership between the colleagues. So these are some of the activities which we have carried out in the past: newsletters, documentaries, several community activities, workshops, symposium, panels, of course, research. And just to indicate, use this opportunity. So we started this Air Quality Management Association in almost 6 months back, and it has been inaugurated by our director. So we would look forward, you to join this initiatives and be part of this Air Quality Management Association. In addition, we also have a conference every year in December. We are organizing Indian International Conference on Air Quality Management, and we received a very good participation this year. We look forward to similar participation next year. So in that, we organized a series of lectures, then winter school, then also community related activities, including drawings and poster presentations and technical presentations. Coming to Air Quality Management lecture series, this lecture is first of its kind in India. We started in October 2020, and it's an important forum for young researchers, scientists, engineers, and educators working in the area of air quality management. The platform also help us to understand the basics, and also looking forward the advancement. It also helps to understand recent technologies in the area of air quality management, and also helpful in collaboration with stakeholders and experts from various countries. So these are all past experts who gave lectures, air quality management lectures. We started this in October 2020, as I mentioned, and the last lecture was in November 2022, given by Professor Richard Ball. And this lecture will be given by Professor Ajay Deshpande. Now I request Ashwin to introduce the speaker. Ashwin, can you hear me?
Sir, I can.
Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Ajay Deshpande is an environmental professional with more than 27 years of hands-on experience in environmental pollution control and governance, environmental policy and planning, circular economy, and sustainable development. Dr. Deshpande has worked with Asian Development Bank as a part-time member of its complaints reviewer panel. He has also worked with Maharashtra Pollution Control Board and as an expert member of the NGT. He is also an adjunct professor at IIT-Bombay and is involved in academic activities at several institutes. Today, Dr. Deshpande will be giving a talk on air quality management, policy and governance in Indian context. He will be discussing the governance structure and various governance principles for the air quality improvement action plan. The lecture would try to identify the roles of different stakeholders and how this coordination would help to effectively implement the action plans. Sir, we welcome you for delivering the talk.
Thank you, Ashwin. Professor Deshpande, over to you. Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. I'll stop sharing it now. Yes, we can see your screen, and please go ahead.
Sir, Deshpande sir's audio we can't hear. Can you please tell him to unmute?
Sir, can you unmute?
Okay. There is a lot of. I don't know. There is an echo sound. 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 Hello. 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 Okay. 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 Thank you. Sorry, there is some technical glitch, and it's really inconvenient. I can understand. So I will be speaking mainly on the air quality management policy and the governance, and particularly with the Indian context. And I think these are some of the poses when actually we start talking about air pollution in the country. We always wonder why cities in India particularly are experiencing high levels of air pollution. If you see the entire winter period, we are every day the newspapers carry a lot of news articles on air pollution in different cities. Earlier, the debate was restricted to northern India, particularly Delhi. But last few months, in fact, last few years rather, even Maharashtra or West Bengal or Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, they are also in discussions. So number of cities is the number is really increasing very rapidly. But many times we wonder what is air pollution when we see the haze or some sort of smog, fog. Also, there is an interpretation of what is air pollution. Then obviously the question is who is responsible, who can control this, and then most importantly whether I can do something. That's important. And when you think about setting up an industry, then there are certain regulations which need to be understood. So is there a clarity on that? These are some of the poses. And if you really think so, the air pollution is being debated in the country right from 2002. In fact, MC Mehta petition started the debate, and first time a list of 16 air polluted cities was notified by the Supreme Court. And action plans were prepared. Many actions have been taken, including all of us are aware the vehicle norms have changed, the fuel norms have changed. There is a large focus on public transportation. Then we have gone for cleaner fuel in the thermal power plant. So there are multiple actions have been initiated. A lot of amount or finances have been spent on that, but we are not able to get the desired results. In fact, detailed studies were carried out in the form of source assessment studies, and finally we were not able to achieve the desired ambient air quality. So the question arises whether we are carrying out the measurements adequately, and secondly scientifically. Both the things are equally important. Then whether we are taking actions which are appropriately designed to meet these standards, that's another question, or whether we are taking actions which are not really relevant for air quality improvement program. And when you come for institutional approach, then whether there is any change or anything wrong with our approach of enforcement. So So in spite of all these things, if we are not able to achieve the desired air quality, then we need to relook into it and we need to innovate. We have to find whether something new has to be done or something like that. So when we see the environmental governance per se, the environmental governance basically has 5 objectives, 5 pillars, what we call in policy domain. First of all, it has to be effective, equitable, participative and inclusive, responsive, and robust. The reason is people have faith in governance if it is going to deliver the results. And if the results are not delivered, then the people lose faith in the governance system. And in case of environmental laws, everybody talks about, okay, we have fantastic laws, but implementation is poor. So this is normally the opinion which builds up in the local people. And environmental problems are not easy. It's not 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. And more particularly with air pollution, it becomes more complex because we have multiple variables, multiple sources of air pollution. Then we have complete atmospheric meteorology, which is going to play a very dominant role. And that's why it is combination of technical, managerial, and behavioral dimensions. We have to understand that it's not easy equation. And that's why it is necessary that the environmental governance needs to be studied when we talk about air pollution studies. Earlier, air pollution was dealt as a technical subject, but gradually now it is understood that it is basically a governance issue, which includes various sort of aspects, including law and policy, enforcement mechanism, institutional mechanism, research and development activities which are involved in that, and then public participation and disclosure. Actually, we are talking about public dissemination of information, but public participation in such program is a very rare activity. Then remedies, and this is a very important part which is emerging now, environmental justice. And then another important aspect which is emerging is the regulatory impact assessment. The example is we are taking so much of actions, then why the results are not coming up and what type of results are coming up. So it is a point, or it is an sort of exercise to introspect ourselves and then carry out or tweak certain actions to meet the objectives. So when we talk about governance in air pollution or air quality improvement programs, it is basically based on 3 principles, rather we should call it. One is the precautionary principle. This is important. We will discuss it subsequently. Then the preventive principle, which most of the pollution control boards are implementing. And in air pollution, the proximity principle comes into play because if we are able to control the source or control the pollution at the source, I think that's most effective. Once the pollution is discharged into the environment, and then controlling is really difficult. The other important aspect which is emerging now is participatory governance. So we need to include people from different fields like air pollution. Now we are talking to doctors, we are talking to sociologists, economists, and all others. And then it has to be credible interaction and also well informed. People need to be informed adequately as well as appropriately. The other aspect is science-based initiatives. Governance recognize that science is necessary. At the same time, it recognizes there is an uncertainty involved in the science. That's most important. In fact, even certain judicial pronouncements have also notified or acknowledged that there is an uncertainty in the environmental science. But the only challenge is how we can tweak that uncertainty towards the environment. So environment need to be the beneficiary of that uncertainty. That's the only point. And then the hotspot approach, which is normally adopted by most of the regulator, and then the grievance redressal. That's the basis. Once a complaint or something really comes to the regulator or any government authority, how the grievances are properly recorded and then addressed adequately by certain actions. So this is one important slide which is across the various aspects of the environmental governance, not only pollution. That is doctrine of sustainable development. We have adopted this principle through judicial pronouncements as well as now recent legislations like National Green Tribunal Act recognize the doctrine of the sustainable development. And all of us are aware in this doctrine, the public trust is a very important concept where the government is working as a trust holding this entire environmental resources on behalf of the people. And then it allots certain sort of resources to various authorities or whether various industries or pollutants per se. And then intergenerational responsibility, it is talked a lot, but I don't know how to really analytically prove or analytically consider this aspect in the air pollution modeling, because we really don't know what we are going to pass on to our next generations. Already we are polluting the environment in a really serious manner. Then the principles of sustainable development, these are three basically. Polluter pays principle looks very easy, but who has polluted, when has polluted, what type of pollution, so much of science is involved in that. And unfortunately, we are not really very strong as on today on this particular aspect. We have recently devised certain mechanisms like environmental compensation, environmental degradation, but yet a lot of studies need to be carried out on this particular aspect. The precautionary principle, it is basically a judicial principle, legal principle, where we are not able to assess the risk adequately, as well as we are not able to quantify the risk adequately. Then judiciary normally adopt this precautionary principle. But as we are dealing with science of the air pollution, I think precautionary principle will get little backseat on the entire studies. And then the onus of proof. This is one very important aspect of the environmental governance or even the jurisprudence is the developer has to show that his project is benign. Unlike the other criminal prosecution where you can plead guilty and the government has to show that there is a guilt involved in that. So when we consider law and policy in the country, it is backed up by constitutional provisions. And we are really lucky that our constitution is very comprehensive. And now with the judicial pronouncements, if the consideration for environment has been really serious and really worthy of it. In fact, Article 21, which gives right to life to every person, not only citizen, but every person, there is a very important deviation here. Like even a foreigner living in the country has also right to live under Article 21. So right to live under Article 21 has been expounded by the higher judiciary, that is Supreme Court, in various judgments to include right to have clean and pollution-free environment. And in fact, this has enabled all of us to approach the Supreme Court or the High Court for the effective enforcement of this fundamental right against the government. And that's why we see many public interest litigation, writ petitions, and even people go to NGT using this provision of the Constitution. Similarly, another important aspect is the fundamental duties of the citizen. Normally, nobody talks about that, or there is less debate on this particular thing. That every citizen, here it's not person, it is citizen. Every citizen has a right to protect and improve the natural environment. So, in fact, when we talk about our right, at the same time, we must understand there are duties defined against us also. So we need to be having a balance between right and the duties. And at the same time, the state also has the sort of directive principles where the state needs to take care of the environment. So we have people having duties as well as rights, and the government is having certain responsibility to care for the environment. So we have a comprehensive provisions in the Constitution for environment, which are reflected in subsequent environmental regulation. Now, when we see the scientific, uh, when we talk about environmental policy, basically it has three aspects. One is the scientific understanding, because when we talk about environment, it is well recognized that it is a science basically. And now it includes social science, financial, economic science, and also core science per se, and including technology. But unless and until we have a better understanding of the environmental background or environmental concerns, it will not be easy to go for solutions for that. So basically, scientific understanding is one of the fundamental things. And then how to solve the problem. When we have problem of air pollution or water pollution or noise, once we have the scientific background or understanding of that, then we can go for solving the problem. And then finally, the recommendations will come from that. So, for example, there are multiple policy issues like, particularly when we talk about air pollution, regional and development plans, basically work and living balance, and then most of the cities are having problem about planning of the city. So you have a business district at one corner, and people are forced to move from one place to other or travel from one place to other. So residential areas and the business districts are quite afar, and planning plays an important role in entire mobility of that particular city. So public transportation policy, then mobility plan, parking policy, these are issues related to urban areas where certain action plans are being prepared. The other important aspect which we are now concerned is the just transition or net zero sort of concept, what we are talking about. So many industries and sort of corporations are talking about how they will reduce their carbon footprint, and I think this will be important. But at the same time, when we talk about reduction of the air pollution or reducing the air pollution levels, there could be certain actions which may impact the informal sector. And I think that is one area which is really emerging a lot. When we talk about different policies, we need to take care of informal sector. For example, in case of air pollution, we know solid waste is one of the major concern. And all of us are aware there is a huge informal sector which is involved in the solid waste management in the city. Similarly, if you take auto industries, automobile garages is one of the important source of livelihood for many skilled and unskilled workers. So if we are regulating this sector, then we need to consider about the informal sector. So coming to the basic legal principles or legal background, we have two predominant regulations, that is Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981 and Environmental Protection Act 1986. It doesn't mean that before 81 we never had anything. There are multiple provisions in the CPC, CRPC, which talks about nuisance and which talks about fouling the air and other things, like even Smoke Nuisance Act of 1905. So, but these two acts actually brought the subject to its core science. And most important part is both these acts actually have been promulgated using the special powers offered to the parliament under Article 253, that is giving effect to international agreements. And that's why they are very specialized act, and they are. Now when we see the definitions in these acts, they have been defined quite ambitiously, I should call it. If you see the definition of environment, it is a nature-centric or ecocentric definition. It gives a primary focus on water, air, land, and then its interrelationship with other biotic and abiotic environment. So a human being is coming at the fag end of the definition. So it's not an anthropogenic definition, anthropocentric definition, but it's an ecocentric definition. And then similarly, the air pollution has been defined. And three things, as I read, firstly said, it is ecocentric definition. Then secondly, it is a inclusive definition. So it talks about any air, any solid, liquid or gaseous. So it is not restricting the definition of the pollutant to few parameters. So once we can establish that certain concentration of a particular substance is going to have certain adverse impact, then it can be called as air pollutant. And this is amply clear, as we have seen that the National Ambient Air Quality Standards earlier had only 7 parameters. Now it has 12 parameters. We don't know, tomorrow this might be expanded and many more additional parameters may be included in future. The third one is it recognizes the certainty or rather uncertainty in the environmental science, and that's why they use maybe or may tend to be. That's very important part. Then that shows the long-term impact any pollutant can have on the environment. Now, if you see the Air Act, it is very clear, as I said, the objectives preamble, it mentions about, first of all, provide prevention, control, and abatement. All the three terms have been used. And also it talks about an institutional mechanism by establishing the Pollution Control Board. And then most importantly, very interestingly, if you see the functions defined for the institutions like central board or the state board, we can see that it is very simple. They have simply said that the main functions of the central board shall be to improve the quality of air and to prevent, control, and abate air pollution in the country. It's completely one-liner, but very powerful statement, and it gives enormous power to the central board to design air pollution control action plan and implement certain measures. But the state boards have a different role altogether. They have a very comprehensive role, and in fact, quite big one, Section 17. If you see, it starts with preparing an action plan, and most importantly, to seek execution thereof. So their responsibility doesn't end at designing an action plan, but finally they have to ensure that the actions are actually executed and implemented. Then they have an advisory role also. They have to advise the state government. And see, in 1981, they talked about collection and dissemination of information related to air pollution. So RTI Act actually came in 2005, but if you can see here, in fact, the act mandates the pollution control board to collect and disseminate information. That's very important provision. And then normal enforcement measures are there. And one important aspect, that is para G, subclause G, is the state boards are empowered to lay down in consultation with the central board and having regard to the standards of quality of air laid down by central board, the standards. So it means that the quality of air, that is the ambient air quality, is at the prime, is at the focus. And then all the contributing sources, whether it is industry, whether it is DG sets, or whether it is atom oil, whatever it is, their emissions have to be regulated such that the ambient air quality is always maintained. I think that's the main purpose or main interpretation of this particular sub clause. And unfortunately, this clause is very rarely used by most of the state boards, because most of the regulations or standards are normally defined by the central board or the central government, and the states adopt that. But I think this is very powerful tool which is available with the state boards to regulate the ambient air quality. And then certain actions like sort of information dissemination, then inspection and other things come into mind. So if you see, the institutional mechanism created under this environmental laws is really powerful in terms of its regulatory capacity. If you see the regulator like MPCB or even MOEF or Department of Environment, there are multiple rules, and one of them is inform and educate, research and standard setting, which is very important, and then support to compliance. They don't talk about command and control only. They talk about facilitation, research in development of technologies, approving the industry's air pollution control system. So many functions are related to facilitation to the industry. And then monitor and enforce the law. Obviously, that's the core function. And then encourage the high performance. So that is also important. Regulations and permit, that is the consent and the environmental clearance we talk about. And then finally, the advisory capacity. So coming to another important policy intervention or a legal provisions, I should call it, is the power to give directions. So the pollution control boards, state and central, both are empowered to issue certain directions, and the directions can include even closure of the industry. So that's a very powerful sort of provision in the Air Act as well as Water Act as well as EP Act. All the three acts have the similar provision where the regulator can issue certain directions to any authority. They can issue directions to any person, officer or authority. So this is very comprehensive power which is used very frequently by most of these pollution control boards and even the Department of Environments also. Now, if you see the air quality governance per se, it requires a robust system because there are multiple players, as we have seen. It requires governments to develop and regularly review the applicable air quality standards. So one of the tool which is available with the regulator is the environmental standards. That is the air quality standards, either ambient or the source emission standards. And then most importantly, determine the institutional responsibility. And unfortunately, in our country, all the responsibility is with either the industry or the state pollution control board. But in many cases, in fact, in developed countries, this responsibility is quite shared. Many a times, the academic institutes, research institutes, and even people are also included in the institutional mechanism for enforcement. Then monitoring the compliance of the air quality standards and then defining the consequences for failure to meet them. I think that's very important. When certain exceedance of the standards has happened, then what next? So what type of legal actions can be taken? What can be penalties which can be set for such offenses or maybe even the exceedance? So all these things need to be defined under the air quality governance. And finally, it's not only the legal actions. Many times you require support, handholding, you require guidance, and many times it requires financial help also. So it's not only the command and control, but you need to define different strategy which will not only provide or which will not only ensure the compliance, but also competitiveness of the industry. So in the air quality, there are different goals like establishing goal, that is what we call it as a national ambient air quality is our ultimate objective. We need to meet the national ambient air quality standards. And then accordingly, we need to design what can be the emissions which can be permeable. We can call it carrying capacity or airshed management aspect. And then developing control technologies, including new technologies like FGDs are now enforced. Then we industry specific standards play an important role. But this process is cyclic. It's not one way or a linear process. And the scientific research is at the core of that. So unless we have technology development, most of the time the reduction in pollution is not that easy. So air pollution standards is the starting point. And luckily in India, we are good in formulating the standard. We have national ambient air quality standards, which are dynamic, which are recently, or rather in 2009, they have been amended. And the industry specific standards are amended from time and again. In fact, earlier it was only general emission standards, but now many industrial sectors, we have the standards. Considering the technology available, considering the best practices which are adopted at that particular industry, what we call it as a BAT, best available technology. And then finally, the sensitiveness of that particular area, because depending upon the area, the state boards can make the standards more stringent also. But there are issues with the enforcement. The first issue is there are multiple sources. Like one industrial area can have 100 or even 1,000 stacks, chimneys, which are releasing the emissions into the environment. And then in that case, unless we have a very scientific and robust understanding of the carrying capacity approach, depending upon the wind and the local conditions, we will not be able to achieve the ambient air quality. The second challenge which is coming up is the expanding definition of air pollution. Today, we are aware about ill impacts of the volatile organics, how the volatile organics are causing certain health issues, and also predominant observations of those volatiles at the CETP and other chemical areas. So new and evolving air pollutants are really important. Then correlation between TPM, PM10 and 2.5. This is a point, this is a debate which is going on since long, because most of the emission standards, source emission standards, they are in TPM, whereas the ambient air quality standards are in PM10 and PM2.5. So correlation between PM10, PM2.5 and TPM is always a point which is debated one. The other area which we are seeing now is spread of the CEMS. We are seeing a lot many CEMS now. It has been mandatory for most of the industries, but reliability, credibility of those CMS is one of the policy issue or area of research also. And then finally, the actions of the SPCB, whether they are consistent, adequate, and speedy, that's always a challenge. And when the air quality is not met, or when there is a issue of air pollution, the role of the State Pollution Control Board is always questioned and always in debate. But there is huge improvement, I should call it, from the Pollution Control Board in terms of the response. So whenever there is any issue of air pollution, not only air, but other types of pollution also, traditionally they were designed to operate on command and control strategy. So basically, the carrot and stick type of approach was adopted. But subsequently, if you really see, the directions which are issued are now science-based. They talk about where is the problem, what is the problem with that particular industry, what areas require improvement, what type of technology can be adopted, what are the best practices available at similar industries, and then the Pollution Control Board issues the direction to a particular industry in a very specific term, A, B, C, D. And not only that, they also specify certain financial guarantees for that. So if the industry doesn't comply to that regulation or those directions in a time-bound manner, in that case, certain financial penalties are also imposed. And in fact, they are going much further now. Very finer details are also specified in the directions, and certain time-bound programs are given. And then even the outcome is also defined in that. So obviously, there is a significant improvement in the enforcement strategy. But the challenge is in the public disclosure. So how much data is really disclosed to the people? See, showing the entire data, like if a CAQMS, continuous ambient air quality standard monitoring station is operational, there is no really use for a common person to get the air quality in terms of every 15 minutes or 20 minutes like that. It can be useful for the researcher, but for a common person, the data has to be used in a very informative manner, innovative manner. And I think one of the best way which we'll discuss is the environmental indexes, air quality indexes, what we talk about. And then that's important. And then at the same time, this is a very powerful tool also, public disclosure. If a particular industry is not complying with the regulation, and if the information is disclosed in the public domain, I'm sure that industry will face a lot of problem in terms of its devaluation of its shares, as well as financial institutions will definitely take cognizance, because it is a risk to their investment, and they will be immediately jumping to the industry for compliance part. So if you see the traditional part in the air quality improvement in the country, basically it is through action plans. And as I earlier mentioned, 2002 Supreme Court order in MC Mehta case identifying 16 cities as air polluted cities. And unfortunately, we in Maharashtra, we had 3, and I was dealing with that particular 3 cities in 2004, 5 and onwards. But at the same time, this order really triggered the research in the air quality management. The source apportionment studies, which were conducted, coordinated by the CPCB of 2007 to 9, really went into the science of the air pollution in the different chemical analysis, CMP, air mode, practically every new technology and analytical tools were used. And then there was an understanding about the contribution of various sources, and then actions were identified. But at the same time, it also recognized the need that there are multiple stakeholders. It's not only the Pollution Control Board which is going to achieve the ambient air quality. Then the committees were formed under Chief Secretary and the Principal Secretary Environment at state level, and then various actions were initiated on that. But it helped in 2 manners. One is it really sensitized the entire government machinery about the subject of air pollution. And at the same time, it also recognized the need of improving the air quality monitoring. And after that, I think most of the cities in the country got air quality monitoring, either manual or a continuous ambient air quality monitoring. And then once we have the data, it is a diagnostic data, we came to know about air pollution. And that, because of such extensive air monitoring, today we are talking about 132 cities which are non-attainment cities, which was the figure was 16. So I'm not really unhappy with the numbers, because at least we know the problem now, and then we can take action on that. If the problem is not known, not recognized, then we will not be taking actions. So we should not be really unhappy by increasing the numbers from 16 to 132, but rather we should think that it is an opportunity where we can design certain action plans and improve the air quality as such. So when we talk about air quality improvement action plans, now all of you are aware about National Air Improvement NCAP, National Clean Air Program, and all the 132 cities have prepared their action plans, which are available on CPCB website. That's one of the fantastic thing. You have data available at the CPCB website. Similarly, the ambient air quality data from CAQMS across the country is also available on CPCB website. So I think that is a very welcome stage. Even research quality data is also available there. But at the same time, this action plan definitely has to have certain components, including what are the fundamental measures, what type of actions. The actions need to be simplified. It should be measurable and verifiable. One major change which has really come from 2004 when the first action plans were prepared, and now we are talking about NCAP, is most of the actions are measurable and verifiable. That's important part. Secondly, there is an investment, there is a financial support given for implementation of action plan. When in 2004 action plans were prepared, there was no financial backup. But today, fortunately, there is a financial support which is given. The next is there is a multi-stakeholder engagement. Now, at each of the city, the academic institution of that city is also involved. The local people are also involved. So I think this is very important that multiple stakeholders are involved in the action plans. But at the same time, there is a challenge actually, which is most of the action plans across the world, particularly in the developed country, link it with the climate change and also public health. We had to recognize that air pollution is not an isolated subject, but it is linked with the climate change as well as public health also. So if we can integrate that completely, not cosmetically, then I think it will serve benefit a lot. So there are multiple stakeholders in action plan. When we talk about policy implementation, we need to first of all know who are the stakeholders. Then government, regulator, local administrator, local body, academic institutions, NGOs, and most importantly, every one of us as a citizen is part of our important stakeholder in the air pollution initiatives. I just keep this side because all of us understand the importance of the science, but only thing which I wanted to say is it's an evolving science. Multiple new pollutants are emerging. Their impacts and correlations are being discovered, and most importantly, we have still not understood the process of impacts fully. So basically, prediction of impacts is an evolving understanding of the science. So when we talk about any action plan or any improvement sort of initiative, we need to consider that it's not only the environmental engineering or environmental sciences which hold the ground. The subject of environment, including air pollution here, is really a multidisciplinary subject. We need technology for environmental improvement. We need to have economic consideration for environmental improvement or environmental compliance. Then health is obviously an issue, and social is also an important parameter. All of them are equally important when we talk about. And if we recognize this fact, I think the action plans will be much more effective to that sense. This one slide, I just wanted to continue with the stakeholder is aspirations and expectation and perception. In fact, now the term perception is really being used by multiple international agencies. In fact, USAID and others are doing perception studies about air pollution in the country. So all of us are quite, it is known that India is an aspirational country. All of us have big aspiration. We want to go to moon, India. We want to improve our India to a great international power, as well as we want environment which is as clean as what we get in Alps and Switzerland also. But at the same time, we expect the Pollution Control Board and the government to do that. I think that's the challenge, and that's where the rights and duties play an important role. So perception is gradually changing from chalta hai attitude to intervention, filing a public interest litigation, filing cases in NGT shows that people have a positive perception about the pollution aspect. So this is one point. So when we talk about public participation and awareness, yes, there is a term, something called as a meaningful consultation. Most of the students who may be here in this lecture, they must have heard about public hearing or consultation. Okay, public consultation. But the public consultation is completely different from meaningful public consultation. The meaningful consultation are continuous process, and it has multiple criteria. Actually, the information has to be provided to the concerned people, timely information, continuous information. The consultation lasts for the entire life cycle of the project. It's not only one time event what we have in our environmental clearance procedures, and the data has to be uh, provided to the local people which they can understand. We can't give complete EI report or air quality action plans in English to a rural population. We have to convert that into the language which can be understood by them. And most importantly, this public participation as on today is important in terms of the grievance redressal mechanism. So if there are complaints, they need to be captured earlier. In fact, this is one benefit if you have a good public participation and consultation, that people are well informed, and if they have any grievances or if they have any sort of issues or concerns, they can be tapped at the very initial stages. And in fact, that's why all the big projects, particularly the infrastructure projects, they undergo public consultation suo moto without any legal provisions. So they talk to the local people, and then if there are certain concerns, that can be captured and redressed effectively. Air quality indexes we have seen, because when we want to share the information with the local people, it has to be in a very in a manner which can be easily understood by the local people. And now I'm really happy people talk about air quality indexes very easily. Okay, AQI is 250. The matter air pollution is serious type of thing. So definitely AQI is a evolving science. No doubt it has to be updated, and maybe many more parameters need to be added, or certain weightages can be tweaked here and there. But yes, air quality index is one of the way to effectively communicate to the local people and create an awareness. The other area which is emerging in air pollution management is environmental justice, and not only in air, again in all types of environmental issues. When there are concerns and people concerned and they are not really redressed at the local level, then the issue becomes a justice. So from environmental concern, it becomes an environmental justice issue. So that transition is really tricky. And if the projects are really well designed, many times the litigation is avoided in the beginning only. So the international benchmarks are the persons affected must get involved in the process of sanctioning. So people's participation in the entire process is really required. And the most importantly, we need to have an annual report of outcomes of various sanctioning actions. Like other day, I was in the Karnataka board and we asked, okay, how many directions you have issued? Direction is basically improvement notices issued to industry. So some number was given. And then we ask, okay, because of such intervention or such legal action, what is the reduction in the pollution load achieved in that particular year? So that type of impact assessment, what is called regulatory impact assessment studies, were not really carried out. But this is the need of our, that annual reports of outcome of various sanctioning actions need to be published. And the courts are also really, the jurisprudence is evolving. Earlier, the courts were talking only about precautionary principle and others, but now simultaneously, prevention and control is at the core. In fact, in many cases, the courts have asked about designing an action plan and implementation of action plan. Best example is NCAP only. And Another important aspect which is now evolving is the remedy, restitution, and compensation. With NGT coming into the fore and having special mandate for restitution, compensation, and relief, many of the court cases are resulting into heavy penalties for causing pollution or violation of environmental regulation. But at the same time, most of the policies and regulations are relying on citizens' responsibility towards the environment. So if you see the solid waste regulation or plastic waste regulation, it talks about citizens' rule. If any individual person is also carrying out acts in violation of the regulation, there can be certain penalties involved for that. So this I think I have explained in earlier, preventive and precautionary. So I'll just move ahead with this. But important aspect in air pollution as well as other types of pollution is polluter pays principle. I think a lot of emphasis is being given by not only the pollution control boards, but also by courts, particularly the Honorable Supreme Court and NGT on polluter pays principle. In India, I think you may be aware there are two types of liability principle. One is the strict liability and no fault liability. But here in India, we have absolute liability, which is quite innovative principle defined by the Supreme Court, where a polluter will be responsible for all the impacts of the pollution caused because of it. For example, if there is a gas leak and the local residents, the nearby residents are required to be shifted from place A to B, the entire expenditure, including the movement of the people, the cost of the regulator, cost of the police authorities, the livelihood losses and whatnot, everything will be calculated and that will be treated as the liability of that industry. Then secondly, NGT Act really talks about this type of provisions, and NGT is frequently using these powers to invoke the polluter pays principle to impose certain compensation. But at the same time, the challenge is, okay, we have the financial resources, but we need to understand that there is a need to spend that money on remediation and restoration of environment. So if air pollution of a city, certain actions are taken, then that amount should be spent on the remediation and restoration. And luckily now in air pollution, central government is funding, as I earlier mentioned about that. So what is the way forward? The way forward is basically innovation. That's the only thing which comes to my mind, because traditionally we have taken so many actions. Various industries have been closed. You can see actions taken at the city level also. Some of the areas which are not really gone under much change is solid waste management in the city. All of us know most of the cities have dump sites and they are burning, and that is contributing to the air pollution. That is one part. The second is the road resuspension, where the traffic and the road dust is contributing to the particulates in the city. And there are steps taken, no doubt about that many cities have gone for biomining or covering of the solid waste. In terms of road dust, now road cleaners have been provided, automatic sweeping machines have been provided to most of the cities. But yes, they have its own limitation, and it involves continuous cost also. So innovative regulations can be adopted by the regulator as well as different, or they can be studied from the policy point. The first one is the environmental standards. So environmental standards trigger innovation. If you make the standards more stringent, it try to improve the efficiency. At the same time, it talks about innovation through out-of-box thinking. For example, in some cases, Tirupur and all others, you know, in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, the zero liquid discharge is specified for certain textile industry. It maybe 10 years back, nobody would have imagined that the textile industry can go for zero discharge. But with regulator stipulating stringent standard, here it was a code direction of this thing. So with the stringent standard, the technological improvement has been done. Out-of-box thinking has really resulted into certain solutions. So this is one standard tool which is used by the regulator in many cases. The important tool which has not been explored in a very big way is the economic instrument. In fact, now all over the world, it is understood that economic instrument can play an important role in tackling the pollution. All of you are aware about climate finance, sustainable finance, and all other terms now. And if we can convert this challenge of pollution into an opportunity for innovation, then I think that's best way of doing that. For example, there are examples in Egypt and some other places where the industries were encouraged to comply by providing certain financial grants to install their pollution systems. And once they tried to do that, the overall efficiency of the production really improved, and they not only achieved the compliance, but at the same time they were competitive also. So economic instrument can definitely play an important role. And now we are talking about new concepts like circular economy, resource efficiency. All of them can definitely help the industry not only to comply the norms, but at the same time efficient and economic, improving their competitiveness at the back end. Subsidies is one part, but it is not really encouraged anymore. But at the same time, still we give some sort of consideration in terms of income tax, depreciation amount, and all other things. The other powerful tool is communication. And I think this is where a lot of efforts are being done. Most of the industries are now asked to publish their sustainability report, BRSR, and all other things. And also, not only that, the environmental permits like Pollution Control Board consent and EC need to be disclosed, then 6 monthly report to be disclosed, and every industry need to disclose the data at their gate and others. Even the regulators are disclosing the data, like as mentioned, CPCB has hosted the action plans, then the CAQMS data is also available on the website. So communication is a very powerful tool, and I think if it can be used more effectively further, it can help to reduce. So the command and control is not the only way which can drive or towards the compliance. The covenants is one part where actually industry and regulator can sit together and they do that. And I think this is one sort of innovative way which has been practiced very frequently by CPCB, where they bring all the stakeholders together and then evolve certain strategy. So if we can consider adopting these innovative policy interventions, they will be really effective, not only for compliance, but also for competitiveness of that particular sector. The economic instruments can be multiple, like direct fees and taxes, deposit refund system, like what the bank guarantee concept in most of the pollution control board is there. Then we have trading regime, emission trading systems, greenhouse emission control, and whatnot, liability principle, information, like for example, product labeling, like we have Energy Star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, and when we select any product or we purchase any product, we always give this importance to the energy consumption. Similarly, environmental labeling, if whether it can come, there was a principle, there was a practice of or protocol for eco labeling earlier. I think there is a need that we need to go back to that type of labeling system. So if we consider as a overall, we have different policy instrument with us, and what best can fit in depends on the local condition. This is not a straight jacket formula. Air pollution reduction is really a scientific aspect, and we need to design. There is no tailor-made solution, so we have to differently design a particular scheme. So environmental effectiveness. So whatever interventions we are planning, whether they are really effective, that's the regulatory impact assessment part. Then flexibility of the responses. The pollution control board has multiple ways of responding to a condition, including closure, prosecution, then giving some time depending upon the seriousness of the violation. Economic instrument, as we discussed. Then confidence in the regulatory environment. Actually, this is one area, what perception study we are talking about. Unless we have confidence in our regulatory environment, nothing really moves forward. So it is a both-way process. The regulator needs to be transparent and innovative and consistent. At the same time, if results are shown, definitely people will have confidence. Not only people, but even multiple stakeholders will have confidence in the regulatory mechanism. And then gradually, there can't be big bang type of approach. There has to be gradual introduction and progressive implementation. And most of these policy instruments, they are basically talking about disclosure and participation. Ultimately, involvement of the local people needs to be there in action plans or any improvement. So coming to NCAP, actually this is one good thing which has happened in the air pollution control in the country. It talks about three-layer structure, that is basically national, state, and ULB. That's really good part. And there is complete interaction of data exchange between all of them. But the more emphasis is given at the local level. So urban local body level committee is really important for success of action plan, because finally the actions need to be taken at the site, and the grievances or the hotspots need to be identified at the site only. So basically the role of there is something called Institute of Repute, IOR. So, sorry, it's AOR. So, Institute of Repute is there, where the local academic institution plays an important role. It provides the scientific support to the program, because most of the ULBs may not have the scientific staff or may not have expertise in the air pollution management. So, the local academic institute provide that particular support, and which has local confidence of the local people also. So, and similarly, we need to consider about IoT and other web-based solutions. And now we can see, even if you open the laptop, we can see the air quality systems or air quality data easily. So IoT plays an important role in not only the disclosure of the data, but at the same time identification of the hotspot, complaint redressal, public information, and student engagement. And definitely, we need to develop champions in not only schools but colleges also to drive the subject. So I will be stopping here.
Ajay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ajay, yes.
Yeah.
See, there are some couple of questions are there in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm reading that.
Try to answer that one. Then after that, I'll
Sure.
use it as a startup.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the first question is from Mr. Sanjay, who has asked, what So he has asked, what were your quantitative or qualitative assessment of 2 success and 2 failures of the NCAP program till date? Which cities have fared the best? See, NCAP has been introduced very recently, if you really see. The biggest success is it has identified the stakeholders very correctly now. So the role of academic institutions, the role of multiple governmental agencies, like even the collector office, the transport office, they were not part of that action plans. The earlier action plans were a business between the State Pollution Control Board and the Central Pollution Control. But now this NCAP is involving the local bodies, the local administration, the academic institutions, and the people. So that's the biggest success, what I feel, that everybody is on board now. That is first one. The second important success is it has brought an investment to implement the action plan. Earlier, the action plans were prepared on paper, not supported by the financial sort of line. But now we have a financial support system for the NCAP, which is its biggest strength. Now the challenge is many times the source apportionment studies have been carried out city-wise, and they are quite rapid. So I don't know what is the technical relevance, but always most of the local people or local administration people, they are aware about the important sources of air pollution. Local knowledge is really critical, and that has been captured. So I will not call it as a failure, but I will flag this issue as city specific actions. That is first. And secondly, evaluation of the performance of the interventions. Like I know many of you must have seen the sweeping machines traveling on the road. One might feel that actually they are generating more air pollution than controlling or capturing the dust. So there needs to be a performance evaluation of different interventions, and that data can be shared with one and all, which can be really useful. Yeah, this is basically Sasi Priyan. He has asked, okay, I missed one question, but I will cover subsequently. So basically, this is what the graded action plan. Okay. So basically, if we have variation in the air quality, the local, first of all, the local people or the local stakeholders need to be involved into that, or they must be informed about that. So data disclosure is one important part, but second importantly, the designing of action. So the enforcement with respect to that type of air quality is already known to everybody. That is city specific again. It can't be general for entire country or entire state. So basically, unless and there has to be a mechanism that the air quality is disclosed to the stakeholders who can then trigger their actions as envisaged. Okay, this is Dr. MM. I think this is not related to air pollution, but I would definitely say uh, the NGT has, if I read the order very clearly, NGT order, what they have done, they have not really penalized anybody. What my interpretation is, I may be wrong, but I hope I should not be wrong, that what they have done, they have calculated the requirement of the money for the untreated waste, and they have taken the parameters or maybe a certain multiplying factor from the pollution control boards only. So suppose there is a gap of treatment of 100 mld and 1 mld requires 3 crore. So then they have asked the particular state to segregate that amount and ring fence that amount, something like as a escrow account. Okay, this will ensure the effective or provision of the pollution control systems in a timely manner. So basically, they are trying to ensure that there is sufficient finances available for installation of the pollution control system. So they're going, yes, many states have gone to the, because once you get like Maharashtra, 12,000 crore fine, this gives a different publicity altogether. It puts certain question marks in front of the administration, the political class, and at the same time, there can be a debate also that ULBs are constitutionally responsible for provision of this treatment system. It is not the responsibility of the state. So there can be debate on that, but they're getting the state. But one thing has happened because of this, a lot of debate has started at government level on provision of the pollution control system. And I'm sure this will result into a substantial improvement, if not complete improvement on that. Okay, air quality index. See, indexing is an art actually. Sometimes it is a science and combination of art also. So, most importantly, if you see the National Sanitary NSF index earlier, it started with 4 parameters, increased to 8 parameters, then 12 parameters. So basically, NSF index I'm talking about. So similarly, the air quality index will also require updation as we go on having more knowledge and information about air quality in the country. Today, we are talking about only, or primary focus is on the particulate. No doubt, it is an important parameter. But in some cases, we may be interested to know more about volatiles, or certain weightages need to be defined like PM2 and PM2.5. Tomorrow, we may talk about PM1 also. So it is an evolving subject. It is not a static thing. And I think every 3 years we need to relook into the overall index, overall weightages on that,
But you don't
and
change
then
it.
come out with
Since you already brought it, there's no
sort
point
of
in
index.
living on it. Don't change it because it's not good.
Yeah, Manoj. Sorry, sir. I'm not able to hear anybody, so I'm relying on the chat only. Dingra sir.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I think, yeah.
I'm
Please
not able
you go ahead,
to
sir.
hear anybody, so you'll have to type
Yeah,
it.
Professor
Sorry,
Dhingra, you
sorry
can
for
go.
the
I am
inconvenience.
putting in WhatsApp.
Okay.
I'll putting in a WhatsApp. I'll call him so that no, Ajay can hear.
Then there is a question, Manoj. Yes, Dr. Shiva. Hello.
No. Let's you answer that. Professor Dhingra, you have some question. You raised hand, right? Could you please speak? Unmute yourself. Ashwin or Sarup, can you just unmute Professor Dhingra? 1 minute, sir. 1 minute.
Hello. Yeah. I think now.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
my question is that normally we are talking about the legal industries, but what happens when the all industry like 150 illegal industries are here? How to take action? That's a big problem, and they are emitting a lot of emission, and the air quality index is going 350 or something every day.
Okay.
Illegal industry in Kakinaka area or Karani area.
Very interesting question, sir.
Yeah, please. I could not hear it. Can you just
Yeah,
repeat?
Again.
Please repeat. Yes.
What I'm saying, normally we are talking about the regulated industry.
No, you can translate it, sir. Shivaji.
Here it is illegal industries spread in the area, about 150 illegal industries and emitting lot of pollution. Okay, and then the air quality index goes up to 350 also, and we are suffering a lot. Particularly elderly people are suffering a lot in this area.
I think, Professor Ajay,
Yeah.
Professor Dhingra's question is, there are many illegal industries will be there, and their numbers are quite high, and they contribute significantly to the air quality. How do we address this kind of illegal industries?
Yeah, I agree. Basically, when the original action plans were designed, this issue was a really serious one. Like for example, the bakeries, okay, or even the automobile garages. So those were the industries actually, even the dhabas, small dhabas, which were using the coal, all of them were really not accounted for. They were not really registered with the local bodies, and that was creating a lot of uncertainty in the data.
Okay.
But once the air pollution inventory is now in public domain, and now it has been revised twice or thrice. The most importantly, as I mentioned, now we have involvement of the urban local body. Earlier, it was prepared by Pollution Control Board, maybe IIT or TERI or some institute was engaged for preparation of emission inventory. But now emission inventories are prepared by the local urban body. So that has bring the sort of granularity in the information, and people most of this information can be has been captured from the site. That is the so the uncertainty still is there, no doubt about that, but gradually it has reduced significantly.
Ajay, I'm just calling over WhatsApp now.
Okay.
I think today is a bad day. I'm not.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ajay, a couple of things I just follow up with that. See, the air quality has been issue in many developed countries also. For example, London, Los Angeles, in many cities, they see that they have improved. Although the quality is not what they used to be reported in earlier textbooks. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what, like, you just mentioned it, we have a good standards, legislations are there. And the only issue is why are we not able to, convince the sources to contribute less emissions?
Yeah. Should I answer?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I think I should be a little blunt on that. The first part is we are increasing in numbers abnormally. That is the first part. Secondly, we are aspiring country. Our economic growth is also significant. Like for example, uh, when I take example of where I stay, like you can see the noise. We don't have
Okay.
a common courtesy of ensuring that the other person is not affected. Okay,
Good.
that's the problem. In fact, I had informed my neighbor, I am having a conference and please don't make noise today. But you know it, and that's actually one of the societal problem. And that's why when I showed the problem definition, society is one of the part of the solution. We need to consider that. For example, again, everybody knows tire burning is not good for health. But in winter, you go to any city, you will find a lot of plastic, a lot of tires are being burned. So three, four factors. One is increasing numbers. That is one. Secondly, our aspirations and economic growth. And thirdly, considering environment as a subsidiary activity. And that's what actually I wanted to focus mainly on the economic instrument. Like for example, if a big project, now metro project or road projects are sponsored by multilateral funds, World Bank or JICA or somebody else, they insist
On Monday evening.
that the environmental parameters are included in the project design. It is not coming because of the pollution control board. It is coming as a part of the design, as a part of the tender. So I think that is really that is the solution we have. But increasing the number, then our socioeconomic conditions, which doesn't allow many of the interventions per se. Uh, I don't know how much success even NCAP will also have. That's a question mark.
No, but my question still not answered. But I was telling that illegal industries existing in a particular area and polluting to the extent of 350 air quality
SP
index.
Sati, I will answer. See, that's actually point. There, actually, the innovations should come into picture. Can a government scheme can be designed that such industries, open calcination or informal charcoal, they can be encouraged to enter into a formal process, like brick kilns earlier. All of them were in the informal sector, but now most of the brick kilns are in the formal sector. So can there be a design of system, particularly to convert these informal industries into a formal sector? And then sometimes the law will have to be used very effectively, very deterrently, maybe some demolitions or maybe some prosecutions or something like that. But that's not the solution. The solution will be in taking that team together in the process, because that's the requirement. You can't stop or you can't live without calcination industry also. So that's why the innovative regulation is the only way out. And for that, you need to provide economic incentives. If you provide them incentive, okay, we'll pay you additional amount. You settle maybe 10 kilometers in an industrial area with different capacities or something like that, minimum capacities.
No, we have approached this through pollution control board also.
Yes.
They are able to help us in checking this pollution, and that the outside pollution license 50 and inside pollution
I answered that.
air purifier. I use this one, and that is often able to reduce the pollution. Inside still.
Okay. No, Professor Ajay, what Professor Dhingra's question is, okay, 1 minute. I think it got disconnected. 1 minute.
No, it's connected now. Hello.
No. I'm calling from WhatsApp because he's not able to hear.
Yeah. Hello.
The question is, even the many unorganized sectors, they contribute pollution to urban areas. Okay. So then this air purifier, all small, whatever the control technologies
cannot help.
They cannot help in the sense. So then how do we? What is the kind of policies or interventions required in order to address this problem?
See, the most important aspect is we need to understand what is the contribution of different sources. Like, for example, when the Mumbai source apportionment studies were carried out, something like 3 to 4% was from these marginal industries. So where we should put our resources? So it is an involvement and priority matrix in the policy domain, what we call it. Like I should put my money where I can get maximum returns. So
Correct.
if I put money in maybe a sector which can get 10% reduction, then I may be comfortable with living with a 4% type of thing. But at the same time, I'm not saying neglecting it. First of all, study that portion, find out its impact or contribution in the air quality, and if it is less, then priorities can be set up, because you will not be able to reduce 100% anywhere in any case, because certain air pollution is allowed in that case. So priority and involvement matrix can be done only if science is properly utilized, and then you decide. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very nice. I think that's a good this thing. But in most of the source apportionment studies, they indicated about 40 to 50% is only resuspended dust. Can't we not easily address this? At least 50% of the pollution could have been reduced. So why are we not making a policy now? Again, we are going to looking into some various other strategies to address the air pollution problem. But I feel that the resuspended dust is within our control. We could easily manage this one. Why
It's,
we are
it's
not able to successful?
it's difficult, what I feel, because first of all, we have a different climatic zone, very dry and period every day. The second important part is it is not one thing, but see, if you really see the construction activities going on in each of the city, the road dust, what we call it, is not coming from transportation. It is coming from transportation plus the construction activities, combination of that. And it is manageable per se, but it requires a lot of resources, consistent efforts. Every day the roads, like Dingra sir may be recollecting, I may not be aware, but the Bombay roads used to be washed in 1970s. Textile ka jo treated water tha, they used to wash the roads regularly. So today we can't afford that. That's the problem.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ajay. I think there is some connectivity issue. You can't hear us clearly. So what we will do is maybe if any questions are there, we will try to get it answered through you through chat box. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think I'll ask Lakshmi Pradeep to summarize your talk. And before that, can you all start your camera so that we can have one group picture? So I request everybody to start camera. Swaroop, can you take the picture?
Yes, sir.
If everybody is on, the camera is, I'm not able to see.
Yes, sir. Still turning it on.
Okay. Just request everybody to start the camera.
Taking it, sir.
Okay, good. Thanks, Swaroop. Lakshmi, can you just summarize the talk?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So today was the 27th lecture in Air Quality Management lecture series, and we had a very informative talk from Dr. Ajay Deshpande, IIT-Bombay. The topic of today's talk was Air Quality Management, Policy and Governance, Indian Context. The lecture discusses the governance structure and various governance principles for the Air Quality Improvement Action Plan. Dr. Ajay Deshpande began his talk by posing very relevant questions related to air pollution and some emerging points on the mitigation actions taken and their results. The talk discussed about the aims and objectives of environmental governance and emphasized on the importance of public participation as an emerging topic of discussion under governance and policy. After discussing about the three main principles of governance, Dr. Deshpande moved on to the various policies and provisions for environment in the Constitution of India. Under regulatory framework, Dr. Ajay Deshpande discuss in detail about the two major acts, the Air Act 1981 and the Environmental Protection Act 1986, and the ecocentric definitions of air pollution. The functions and roles of the central and state boards were elaborated in the lecture, and Dr. Ajay Deshpande showed that the state and the central pollution control boards act as a multifunctional regulator with the power to give the direction. He insisted that air quality governance requires a robust system, and it begins with establishment of air quality standards, which also involves various enforcement issues associated with it. He showed how these issues can be overcome by the enforcement strategies like command and control and determine and direct. He stated that significant improvement has been seen in the enforcement strategies and suggested that environmental monitoring data can be disseminated to public in a very interesting and innovative manner similar to air quality index. He discussed the importance of air quality improvement action plans, which identified the involvement of multiple stakeholder engagements in air quality management, and stated that actions being measurable and having financial backup are major changes with the emergence of NCAP. The talk emphasized on the importance of various stakeholders and their coordination for effective governance. The lecture identifies the roles of different stakeholders and how this coordination would help efficiently implement the action plans. Dr. Deshpande also touched upon the significance of perception studies and public participation and awareness, especially emphasizing on meaningful consultation. He ended the lecture by discussing the way forward. He stated that the way forward is by innovations and discussed various innovative regulations, economic instruments available, and also NCAP as a way to coordinate. Sir, the talk was very comprehensive and informative, and it helped us understand that air quality management, apart from being a technical concern, was also a governance issue. Thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time and for the inspiring talk. And also thank you for patiently answering all the queries from the audience. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Lakshmi. Mr. Ajay, thank you very much for your time, and yeah, so we look forward to see you in the subsequent events.
Sure.
And those others, please, if you are interested to join our lectures in the future, please send your email so that we will circulate the talk information to you. Okay, and if you can also share your mobile phone so that we can send the link through WhatsApp group. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ajay, and
Thank you.
Dr. Dingla, thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Sanjay, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Kindly pass on his email.